Angelina and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my anticipated May releases. So I just decided to do this video and maybe I will keep doing them every month, but I just really want to talk about some books that are going to be releasing soon that I really want to read. I don't do TBRs usually just because I never follow them, so I feel like this is kind of a better way of doing things. And yeah, maybe you guys will find some books that you also want to read, and tell me down in the comments below what books are coming out in May that you are excited to read. And yeah, let's just get into all of these books. Hopefully this video is not going to take too long. And just to let you all know, this list is sort of a jumble of genres and age categories. So there will be adult, young adult, middle grade books, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, just a bunch of everything. So if you're coming here for like a curated list of like a very specific genre or something, you're not going to get that here. But yeah, if you see any books that aren't on this list that you guys are anticipating, let me know in the comments because I like to make my TBR even longer. Okay, but let's get into the books. So on May 2nd, there are 6 books that I am anticipating, and the first of these is The Ferryman by Justin Cronin, and this is an adult sci-fi dystopian type story about this hidden island with a group of survivors where the truth isn't all what it seems. The synopsis is sort of giving me like maybe like some like superhuman type people who like get rebirth after they live so long. Yeah, I do have an arc of this one from NetGalley, and I'm very excited to get into it. Next is The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Khaw. This is a adult horror novella with a really interesting premise. It's about a mermaid and a plague doctor who go on the run together, and then they like stumble upon this village of ageless children, and it's like their little survival story. But I don't know, that synopsis just really makes me intrigued to read this one. I have read a book by this author before and I gave it 3 stars, so I'm excited to see what they do with this one because I feel like this is an author I could really end up loving. And then We Don't Swim Here by Vincent Torrado. This is a YA like mystery sort of horror book following 2 cousins who are unraveling their town's sinister past, their family's complicated history, and the terrifying spirit that holds their future captive. And you know, it's not often that I will pick up a YA thriller horror type story, but this one, just something about it just makes me intrigued by it. But I wanted to put that one on here, although it's not something that I would usually pick up. And then Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams is an adult romance following a florist who makes a questionable agreement with a tattooed bad boy. And I'll be honest, this one is definitely one that I put on here just for the cover. I think it is stunning. I know this author has written a previous book that gained a lot of hype, but I haven't read it and I don't really have any interest in it. But this one seems like one that I will really enjoy. Next is The Sun and the Star by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. This is a fantasy middle grade. It's the next in the Percy Jackson series, and we're finally getting Nico's book, and it's all about Nico and Will like going to rescue one of their old friends. I don't really need to like know too much about this one just because I love the Percy Jackson books and like the entire universe. So yeah, I'm super excited that we're finally getting Nico's book. And the final book coming out May 2nd is The Marriage Act by John Mars, and this is an adult thriller type story following what happens if marriage is law and like what happens if you disobey it. And that's just really intriguing. I have not read anything by this author, but all of their previous books really intrigue me as well. And maybe this is the book that will finally get me to pick up John Mars because I have heard good things about him, so I'm excited to give him a try. Alright, and then May 9th, there are 3 books coming out that I'm excited about. The Takeout by Tracy Badua, and this is one following this celebrity chef who opens a new restaurant, and it's threatening this young girl's family food truck, and she has taken it into her own hands to expose them for the recipe thieves that they are, and she might even dabble in some Filipino folk magic, even though she's been trying to avoid it. And I love the cover of this. The synopsis just sounds really adorable. I want to give it a try. Then we have A Crown of Ivy and Glass by Claire Legrand. This is another author I haven't picked anything up from before, but I have seen their books floating around on the internet and like hearing people talk about them. But this book in particular is, I believe, their first adult fantasy romance type story, and it follows Gemma and Talon, I believe are their names, and they have like a blood feud between their 2 families, and they have to like work together in order to slay a demon and end this feud. Sounds interesting. I have heard mixed opinions about this one already though from like early reviewers, but I still want to give this one a try. And the last book coming out on May 9th that I'm sort of in the know about is The Boyfriend Candidate by Ashley Winstead, and this is another adult romance, but this one is following Alexis, who decides to like change like her personality and like her life and start like being more outgoing, and she decides to have a one-night stand. So she meets this guy at a bar, but then the hotel that the bar is in like catches on fire, and so as they are leaving, sort of paparazzi or something like starts taking their pictures and putting them online, and that is when she realizes that this guy is actually running for governor, I believe, and then they end up having to fake date for his candidacy. So I'm interested in this one. It sounds like a lot of fun. So on May 16th, there are actually 8 books coming out that I am anticipating, and the very first one is Yellowface by Ara Kwong. I love Ara Kwong, so obviously this one is on this list, but this book is a literary fiction book following Juniper Song, who is pretending to be Asian American and is like using a pseudonym and stuff in order to sort of write this book that ends up becoming a New York Times bestsellers list. I believe she actually steals this manuscript from someone else, but I don't know. It's Ara Kwong. I trust her, so I'm super excited to read this one. And from early reviews, they seem to be like really positive and stuff, so that makes me even more excited for this one. Next is The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren, and this is an adult romance following a romance author and a filmmaker who end up joining forces in order to craft the perfect Hollywood love story. Me and Christina Lauren have sort of a love-hate relationship. Some of their books I absolutely adore, and some have just really not worked for me, so I keep picking them up anyways. And hopefully this is one I end up loving. The next book is Rubi Ramos's Recipe for Success by Jessica Para, and this one follows Ruby, who ends up getting waitlisted for university, so she has to turn to this surfer dude who's also a math genius in order to get tutoring, but her real passion lies in baking, and the annual like bake competition comes around, and she sort of has to decide what she really wants for life and things like that. And I don't know, it just sounds like a really cute YA contemporary, and I love the cover for this one, so I had to add it to this list. And then Summer Reading by Jen McKinley. This is an adult romance following this woman who has nothing to do with reading. She doesn't like it, who ends up meeting this guy who's a very big bookworm, and they sort of have a summer fling, and obviously a summer fling that has to do with one person who doesn't like to read and one person who does. Just, it sounds perfect. I love that premise, so I'm excited to read it. And then another book that has an absolutely beautiful cover is Fake Dates and Mooncakes by Sheer Lee. and this one follows an aspiring chef who ends up fake dating one of their customers. That's really all I need to know. Fake dating, a book with a beautiful cover. Just another cute YA contemporary that I had to add to this list. And then Court of the Undying Seasons by Aim Strickland is a YA fantasy romance following Finn, who ends up getting into vampire school. And if you succeed, you become a vampire. If you fail, you become like food for the vampires. Or you die while going through school. And yeah, it's all about them trying to survive vampire school. I don't know, sounds interesting. I sort of have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with vampire books. There's not many of them that I actually end up enjoying, but just like a vampire school sounds like an interesting take on it. And I have heard amazing things about this author. And they write like a lot of queer books, so I do want to give this one a try. And then All the Dead Lie Down by Kylie McCauley. I think that's how you say that name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of these authors' names. But this is a YA gothic horror that has to do with like dark lineages and like ghosts from the past resurfacing, and sort of like the lines will cross for love. And I don't know, this is another one that's sort of out of my comfort zone, but seems intriguing enough for me to add it onto this list. And then Lose You to Find Me by Eric J. Brown is a YA romance, and this one follows this guy named Tommy who is working as a server in a retirement home, but in order to get a letter of recommendation into this culinary school that he wants to go to, his manager is making him train the new hire, who just happens to be his old crush, but his crush does not remember him at all. And I don't know, this seems like another cute YA romance, so it's on this list. But moving on to May 23rd, there are 5 books coming out that I am anticipating. So the first book releasing on May 23rd is Perilous Times by Thomas D. Lee, and this one is an adult fantasy Arthurian retelling, and it's about this knight who has to sort of, like, he's an immortal knight who has to like come back just to save these like political polarized world from itself. And it seems like the sort of fantasy that might be like a little comedic, but also sort of have like big themes and morals to it. And I just really love that, like a book that can talk about important subject matters while also being lighthearted. In like a fantasy setting, I really enjoy that, so I'm excited to get to this one. This is one that I also have an arc of through Night Galleys, so hopefully I get to it soon. And then Hard Dough Homicide by Olivia Matthews is book 2 in the Spice Isle Bakery series. I read the first one a couple months ago, I think. Was it in February? I don't even know. But I really enjoyed it, and this is the next in the series, and we're continuing to follow Lindsay, and this time she is hosting sort of a retirement dinner for the local high school's principal's retirement. But this principal happened to be her mom's old boss, and they did not get along, and while at this sort of retirement party, the principal ends up dying. And it is up to Lindsay once again to figure out who did it. And it's just a nice little cozy mystery. I enjoyed the first one, like I said, so I want to try out the second one. Although cozy mysteries aren't really a genre I tend to gravitate towards, I enjoyed the first one enough to continue in the series. And then Magic Has No Borders is a YA anthology of, I believe, 14 stories, and they're all following Asian like folklore, legends, things like that. And I enjoy picking up anthologies and finding new authors to try out. And I believe when I was looking at all the authors included in this collection, I hadn't read any of them. I have heard of a couple of them, but I haven't actually read anything by them. So this collection seems like the perfect opportunity to sort of discover some new authors. All right, and then the Luis Ortega Survival Guide by Sonia Reyes is a more hard-hitting YA contemporary story following this autistic teenager who is at this party and gets sexually assaulted by this guy named Luis, and then she ends up teaming up with a bunch of other people at the school to sort of expose this guy for the predator that he is. And I have heard great things about this author's, I believe, their debut novel. But yeah, this one just really intrigues me. I love a good hard-hitting YA, so I'm very excited for this one. So the last book I have coming out on May 23rd is Love at First Set by Jennifer Dugan. And I'll admit, I have read one of this author's YA books and hated it, but this author is transitioning to adult romance and I want to give them another try, especially because the premise of this one sounds interesting and I love the cover. It's a sapphic romance, so I want to try it out. But this one follows this woman who ends up giving a drunken bathroom talk to this other lady, and she ends up finding out that this was the bride-to-be and she's convinced her to leave her fiance the day before the wedding. And yeah, it just sounds like a fun sapphic romance and I love that, so it is on this list. I have no clue if I'll actually enjoy it, but I will definitely be picking it up, so we'll see. On to the last 6 books that I have to talk about. All of these release on May 30th, and of course we're going to start off with An Island Princess Starts a Scandal by Adriana Herrera. I really enjoy Adriana Herrera's books, so I had to include this one. This is book 2 in this series. The first book I did give 3 stars, but look, guys, this one is another sapphic romance and just sapphic historical romance. I love it. There needs to be more of it, so this one had to go on the list. But this one is all about these 2 women who have a bargain with each other to spend one very scandalous summer together. What more could you want in a book? I don't know, but I am so excited to read this one, and I do have an arc of this one as well from NetGalley, and I cannot wait to get to it. And next is Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epic, and this one is an adult historical fantasy type book following a legendary Chinese pirate queen. I love pirates, books about pirates, books even just set out on the sea. I am so excited for this one. The cover of this one is gorgeous. I'm just so excited about this one. I don't really know too much about it, but legendary Chinese pirate queen, that right there just sold me. I'm so excited for this one. Next is When the Vibe is Right by Sarah Dass. This is a YA enemies to lovers romance set during the Trinidad Carnival. Again, I don't need to know any more than that. Super interesting. I love enemies to lovers romances. I've never read a book set during the Trinidad Carnival, so that intrigues me. The next book is Girls Like Girls by Haley Kiyoko. I don't know anything about this book except that it's a YA sapphic romance. I know that the author is a famous singer. I haven't really listened to any of their music though, I don't think. But I know she's a very big singer, and this book is based off of one of her songs and one of her music videos. I don't know. I have seen so much hype for this book. I am so excited for it. Next is In the Tunnel by Julie Lee, and this is a middle grade historical fiction about this young refugee who ends up getting trapped in an enemy tunnel during the Korean War. I love a good middle grade historical fiction book. Any historical fiction book really that deals with sort of events that aren't really talked about in books, mainly World War II. I feel like that's the one that all historical fiction books talk about. So I love seeing different historical events get discussed, and especially in a middle grade book. I love that. So I am excited to read this one. And we are finally at the last book that I have to talk about, and that is Her Good Side by Rebecca Weatherspoon. And this one is another YA contemporary romance. And this one like follows two like really awkward teens who decide to fake date in order to practice for actually going out and dating people. That just sounds like so much fun. It's so cute. I love it. A good like springtime read. And yeah, I'm excited for that, as I've been saying with all these books. And that is it for the video. That was all of the May releases that I am anticipating. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. And let me know if I should continue doing these videos every month. If you found any books that you are excited to read. And if you are like an early reviewer and you have read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them, because I would love to know. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!